I always told myself my relationship with my mother was just complicated, not malicious. Then came the gift reveal. She handed out sleek, sealed boxes to every grandchild in the room. The newest iPhone 17 Pro Max. Every child except mine, while her cousins tore into shrink wrap. My 10-year-old daughter sat freezing with a single card in her lap. That was the moment I realized this wasn't a mistake. It was a weapon. For years, I described my relationship with my mother as a series of paper cuts. None of them were deep enough to require stitches, and none of them left a scar that anyone else could see. But if you accumulated enough of them over 3 decades, you eventually learned to flinch before the paper even moved. I was 32 years old. I had a steady job as a project manager, a husband who actually listened when I spoke, and a 10-year-old daughter named Ellie who was the brightest, kindest thing I had ever known. By all accounts, I was a functional adult living a functional life in Briar Glen, Pennsylvania. Yet, whenever Marlene Henderson's name popped up on my phone screen, my heart rate spiked. It was never about big, dramatic blowouts. Marlene did not do screaming matches. She did sighs. She did backhanded compliments about my housekeeping. She did selective hearing. She was a master of the plausible denial, the artist of the phrase "I was only joking." So when the invitation came for a grandkid's celebration, my stomach tightened. It was a group text, sent to me, my brother, and my cousins. "I want everyone at the townhouse this Saturday." Marlene wrote, "No excuses. I am making a big dinner. It is time for a fresh start for this family. Please bring the grandchildren in their best outfits for photos. I have a surprise. A fresh start." That was Marlene's speak for, "I have decided to ignore the tension I caused last Christmas and expect you all to play along." "Sadie, do we have to go?" My husband, Mark, asked that evening as he watched me pacing the kitchen island. He was leaning against the counter, drying a pasta pot. Mark was 34, with the kind of patience that usually balanced out my anxiety. But even he had limits regarding my mother. She said, "It is for the grandkids," I said, stopping to check my calendar for the 3rd time, as if a conflict might magically appear to save me. "If I do not go, she will tell everyone I am keeping Ellie away out of spite. You know how she spins things. She will say I am alienating her." Mark set the pot down with a heavy thud. "She is the one who alienates people. Sadie, I know." I said, "I know. But it is just one dinner. I will put Ellie in that navy velvet dress Mom likes. We will smile, we will eat roast chicken, and we will be out by 8. I was trying to convince myself more than him. The phrase "best outfits for photos" was the part that gnawed at me. Marlene loved documentation. She loved photos that proved she was the matriarch of a happy, thriving dynasty, even if she had to insult 3 people to get them to smile correctly. But I looked at Ellie, sitting at the dining table with her homework, chewing on the end of her pencil, completely unaware of the politics swirling above her head. She deserved to know her cousins. She deserved to know her grandmother, provided her grandmother could behave. I will monitor the situation. I promised Mark, the second it gets weird, we leave. It got weird immediately. Marlene's townhouse was in one of the nicer developments in Briar Glen, the kind of place where the homeowners association sent you a warning letter if your trash cans were visible from the street for more than an hour. The inside smelled of lemon polish and expensive potpourri. It was a museum of a home, filled with white carpet that looked like it had never been walked on. When we arrived, the air was already thick with that specific family tension that tastes like metal. My brother, Michael, was there with his wife, Jenna. They were sitting on the stiff floral sofa, looking like they were in a waiting room for a root canal. My cousins, Bree and David, were wrangling their own kids in the hallway. There were 7 grandchildren in total, ranging from 4 to 14. Ellie was smack in the middle at 10. "Sadie!" Marlene called out from the kitchen. She swept into the hallway, wiping her hands on a pristine tea towel. My mother was in her late 50s but looked 10 years younger, maintained by a regimen of Pilates and sheer force of will. She was wearing a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than my first car. "You made it," she said, leaning in to kiss my cheek. Her perfume was overpowering, something floral and sharp. "We are here," I said, forcing a smile. "And look at this one." Marlene turned her gaze down to Ellie. Ellie stood a little straighter, smoothing the skirt of her navy dress. "Hi, Grandma." Marlene looked her up and down, her eyes narrowing just a fraction of a millimeter. It was a look I knew well. It was the assessment. "Is that the dress I bought you last year?" Marlene asked. "Yes," I answered for her. "It fits her perfectly now." "It is a little short, isn't it?" Marlene said, her voice light, airy. "But you have such long legs." "Ellie, just like your father's side." It was a small cut, a tiny suggestion that Ellie looked improper, blamed on genetics from the side of the family Marlene didn't respect. I felt the familiar heat rise in my chest, but I tamped it down. "She looks beautiful." "Mom," I said firmly. "Of course she does." Marlene clapped her hands. "Go on in. Everyone, the food is almost ready. But first, we have business to attend to." She ushered us into the living room. The adults took the perimeter, standing against the walls or perching on the arms of chairs, while Marlene directed the 7 grandchildren to sit in a semicircle on the white carpet. "I want a picture before we mess up the room," Marlene announced. She spent 5 minutes arranging them. She physically moved Ellie to the far left edge, tilting her chin up, smoothing her hair with a little too much force. "Smile," she commanded. Flashes went off. Aunts and uncles held up phones. It felt less like a family gathering and more like a press conference. "Okay," Marlene said, clapping her hands again. "Now for the surprise. I told you all this was a fresh start. I want to make sure my grandbabies have everything they need to succeed. The world is changing. You need to be connected." She walked over to the sideboard, where a large tote bag sat. She reached in and pulled out a stack of boxes. The room went quiet. Even from where I was standing by the archway to the dining room, I recognized the packaging. They were apple boxes, sleek, white, heavy. I felt a nudge at my elbow. It was Mark. "Are those phones?" he whispered. "They look like it." I whispered back. My pulse quickened. This was generous. Extremely generous. A new iPhone was $1,000. Easy. For her to buy 7 of them? It was a flex. It was Marlene reminding us exactly how much financial power she held. Marlene began calling names. "Theo," she said, handing a box to Michael's 12-year-old son. Theo's eyes went wide. He tore the plastic wrap off immediately. "No way," he breathed. "The 17 Pro Max? Grandma, you are the goat." I winced at the slang, but Marlene beamed. "Lila." She called next. My 14-year-old niece. Lila took her box with a squeal. "Oh my God. Thank you." One by one. She went down the line. The 4-year-old twins, Bree's kids, got iPads instead of phones, which made sense. The other older cousins got the phones. The room filled with the crinkle of plastic and the excited chatter of children realizing they had just hit the jackpot. I watched Ellie. She was sitting with her hands folded in her lap, a polite smile on her face, waiting for her turn. She was the most patient child I knew. She watched Theo hold his phone up to the light. She watched Lila already tapping away at the screen. Marlene reached into the bag one last time. Ellie sat up a little straighter. Marlene pulled out a small, flat, cream-colored envelope. "And for Ellie," Marlene said, her voice dropping to a register that sounded remarkably like pity. She handed the envelope to my daughter. The room didn't stop immediately. The other kids were too loud, too engrossed in their new toys. But the adults saw it. I saw Jenna's head snap up. I saw my cousin Bree freeze, her hand halfway to her mouth. Ellie took the envelope. She looked at the heavy box in Theo's lap next to her, then down at the paper in her hands. She didn't cry. She didn't throw a fit. She just opened the envelope with trembling fingers. Inside was a card. I was close enough to see the handwriting, but I didn't need to read it then. I knew what it was. It was a nothing. Ellie looked up at Marlene, confusion crinkling her forehead. "Grandma?" she whispered. Marlene smiled. A tight, closed-lip expression. "Read the card, sweetie." Ellie looked down and read it aloud, her voice barely audible over the noise of the other cousins setting up their Face ID. We will talk later. Sweetie? That was it. Ellie looked up again. Her eyes flicked to the other kids' boxes, the shiny titanium edges of the phones, the bright screens lighting up their faces. She looked back at the card. I stepped forward. The air in the room had shifted. It was heavy, suffocating. One of the aunts, my father's sister who barely knew the dynamics, whispered loud enough to be heard. Maybe it is a mistake? Maybe she left it in the other room? Mark started to move, his jaw set in a hard line. But I put a hand on his chest. I needed to handle this. If he went in there, he would yell, and Marlene would play the victim. I needed to be surgical. The reaction in the room was painfully, viscerally realistic. There was no collective gasp. There was just awkwardness. Michael, my brother, suddenly found the crown molding incredibly interesting. Jenna started loudly asking her son Theo about the color of the case. My cousin David was holding his phone up, recording the kids opening their gifts. And he didn't stop recording. He just slowly panned the camera away from Ellie, capturing the moment for the family archive, editing my daughter out in real time to avoid the discomfort. Ellie sat there. She placed the card back in the envelope and set it on her knee. She didn't look at me. She was trying so hard to be good, to not make a scene, that it broke my heart into 1,000 jagged pieces. I walked over to the semicircle. Okay, guys, let's get washed up for dinner, I said, my voice sounding unnaturally bright. Ellie, come with me. Honey? Ellie stood up. She looked at Marlene one last time, waiting for the punchline, waiting for the "oh, I am just teasing. Here is yours" moment. It didn't come. Marlene had turned her back and was admiring Lila's phone setup. I walked Ellie to the hallway. Mark was there, crouching down immediately to eye level with her. Hey, Elle, he said softly. You okay? Ellie nodded. She was biting her lip. I am okay. Why don't you go with Daddy to the car for a second? I said, I forgot something in the kitchen. But dinner, Ellie started. We are not staying for dinner, Mark said. He looked at me, and we had a silent conversation. He took Ellie's hand. Go get the keys from my purse. Mark. I waited until they were out the front door before I turned toward the kitchen. Marlene was standing at the island, tossing a salad. She was humming. The level of casualness was psychopathic. Mom? I said. She didn't turn around. Hand me that dressing. Would you? Sadie? I did not move. Mom, I asked, keeping my voice level, steady, calm. Why did every grandchild get a phone except Ellie? Marlene sighed. A long, suffering exhale, and finally turned around. She wiped her hands on her apron. Oh, Sadie, do not be dramatic. It is not a punishment. Then what is it? I asked. She is 10. Theo is 12. Lila is 14. Even the younger ones got iPads. Ellie is the only one sitting there with an empty lap. Do you have any idea how that felt for her? Marlene picked up a wine glass and took a slow sip. I thought about it a lot. Sadie, honestly, I did, but I just do not think Ellie is ready for that kind of responsibility. She is 10, I repeated. She is responsible. She gets straight A's. She helps around the house. It is not about grades, Marlene said, waving her hand dismissively. It is about maturity. And frankly, Sadie, it is about your parenting. There it was, the pivot. My parenting? I asked. Marlene leaned against the counter, crossing her ankles. You are too soft on her. Sadie, you let her quit soccer. You let her wear whatever she wants. If I give her a phone, she will just be on it all day, rotting her brain. I am doing this for her own good. Someone has to be the bad guy to teach her focus. I stared at her. The logic was so twisted, it was almost impressive. She had humiliated a 10-year-old in front of her entire extended family to teach her focus. She quit soccer because she hated it, I said, my voice dropping lower. And she wears what she wants because she is a child expressing herself. This wasn't about her. This was you picking her out. You singled her out. Mom. You brought us here, told me to dress her up, and then you excluded her publicly. Marlene's eyes hardened. Maybe if you were around more, I would know she was ready, but I barely see her. Sadie, how am I supposed to judge her maturity when you keep her away from me? The trap snapped shut. This was the price. The phone was the carrot, and Ellie was the stick. Marlene was punishing Ellie to hurt me. She was saying, "Give me access, or your daughter suffers the consequences of being the outsider." I looked at the salad bowl. It was full of expensive greens and pomegranate seeds. It looked perfect. Everything here looked perfect. "We are leaving," I said. "Sadie, do not be ridiculous. I made a roast. We are leaving," I repeated. I turned on my heel. "You are walking out on family," Marlene called after me, her voice finally rising, cracking the facade. "You are ruining the night for everyone." I didn't stop. I walked down the hallway, past the living room where my brother Michael was pretending to show his son how to use the camera, past my cousins who were awkwardly staring at the floor. "Goodbye," I said to the room at large. I walked out the front door and into the cool autumn air. The drive home was silent for the first 10 minutes. Mark was driving, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. I sat in the passenger seat, staring out the window at the passing suburban houses, the blue glow of televisions flickering in living room windows. I turned around to look at Ellie in the back seat. She wasn't playing with a toy. She wasn't looking out the window. She was just sitting there, staring at the back of my seat. "Elle?" I said softly. She blinked. "Yeah, Mom?" I reached my hand back. She took it. Her fingers were cold. "I am sorry about tonight." I said, "That wasn't fair. You know that, right? That wasn't about you." Ellie was quiet for a long moment. Then she asked the question that I knew was coming. The question that Marlene had planted like a weed in her brain. "Did I do something wrong?" she asked. Her voice was small, trembling. "Did I not say thank you enough last time? Is it because I didn't draw her a card for her birthday?" "Oh, baby. No," I said, squeezing her hand. "No, you did nothing wrong. You are perfect. Grandma made a mistake, a big one. This has nothing to do with you." She didn't believe me. I could see it in her eyes. At 10 years old, adults are the gods of your universe. If an adult treats you like you are less than, you assume it is because you are less than. Marlene knew that. That was why it was so cruel. When we got home, I sent Ellie upstairs to take a bath. I put a bath bomb in the water, the purple kind she loved, and set up her favorite playlist. I wanted to scrub the night off her skin. Downstairs, Mark was pacing the living room. "I'm going to buy her a phone," he said, "right now." "I am going to the store." "No," I said, "Sadie, I cannot let her feel like the poor relation. I cannot let your mother win. Buying her a phone now doesn't make Marlene lose." "Mark," I said, sitting down heavily on the sofa, "it just teaches Ellie that material things are the only way to feel better, and it teaches Marlene that she can jerk us around and we will just scramble to clean up her mess." "So we do nothing?" Mark asked, stopping in front of me. "We just let Ellie be the only kid without one?" "We do not do nothing," I said. "We protect her." My phone buzzed on the coffee table. Then it buzzed again, and again, a rapid-fire staccato of notifications. I picked it up. It was the family group chat, the one Marlene had created. Photos were flooding in. "Look at these happy faces." Marlene had captioned the first one. It was the group shot, the one taken right after the gifts were opened. All the grandkids were holding up their sleek white boxes, smiling wide. But something was wrong with the composition. I zoomed in. Ellie wasn't there. Marlene had cropped the photo. She had sliced the image right down the side where Ellie had been sitting. It was a clean edit. To anyone on Marlene's Facebook friends list, it would look like a perfect, complete set of grandchildren. Ellie had simply ceased to exist. I felt a cold rage settle in my stomach. It wasn't the hot, frantic anger I used to feel in my 20s. This was different. This was the cold, calculating anger of a mother who realizes the predator is inside the house. It wasn't a slip. I said to Mark, holding up the phone, "She cropped her out." Mark looked at the screen and swore. I opened a new message thread. "Just me. Mark, and Marlene. I type slowly, my fingers steady. Mom, what you did tonight was unacceptable. You singled Ellie out to hurt her, and now you are erasing her from the family photos. Moving forward, Ellie will not be attending any events where she is treated differently than the other grandchildren. We are taking a break from visits until further notice. I hit send. I didn't have to wait long. 2 minutes later, an audio message appeared. I played it. Marlene's voice filled our living room, thick with tears, vibrating with martyrdom. Sadie, I cannot believe you are doing this to me. After everything I have done for you? After I hosted everyone, cooked for 2 days, bought thousands of dollars of gifts? You are going to punish me because Ellie is not ready for a phone? You are being so sensitive. You are tearing this family apart over a gadget. It is selfish. Sadie, truly selfish. I stopped the recording before it finished. The gaslighting was textbook. She had turned the narrative upside down. In her version, she was the generous grandmother, and I was the petty daughter demanding expensive electronics. I looked at Mark. He looked ready to throw the phone through the window. She is going to tell everyone I am the villain. I said, let her. Mark said, we know the truth, do we? I asked. I stood up and walked over to the kitchen counter where I had dumped my purse. I needed a glass of water. As I reached for a glass, my eyes caught on something in my memory. I closed my eyes, replaying the scene in the living room, the white boxes, the excitement. Wait, I said. What? Mark asked. I walked back to the living room. I pulled up the photos Marlene had posted in the chat again. I zoomed in on the box in Theo's hand. In the background of the photo, on the floor, was the shopping bag Marlene had pulled the phones from. It wasn't an Apple Store bag. It was a glossy navy blue bag with silver foil lettering. Lakeview Wireless. I read aloud. So, Mark said. So, Marlene is cheap. I said, she drives 20 minutes out of her way to save 4 cents on gas. She buys day-old bread. She never, ever pays full retail if she can help it. Lakeview Wireless is that boutique electronics shop downtown. Mark said, the one next to the organic coffee place? Exactly. I said, their markups are insane. They charge 20% over list price for the convenience of personal setup. Why would she buy 7 iPhones at a boutique with a markup? I asked. If she ordered them online or went to the carrier, she could have gotten a deal, a family plan discount, something. Marlene would never pay premium prices for 7 devices unless what? Mark asked. I zoomed in further on the bag in the photo. Unless she wasn't paying with her own money. I said, the thought hung in the air. Marlene was comfortable, but she wasn't rich. 7 iPhone 17 Pro Maxes would run nearly $10,000 with tax. That was a huge hit for a casual Saturday dinner. Something is off. I said, the exclusion of Ellie was planned, the photo crop was planned, and the purchase. That feels planned too, but not in the way we think. I looked at Mark. I am not buying Ellie a phone. I said, but I am going to find out exactly how my mother paid for 7 of them. I went upstairs to check on Ellie. She was asleep, her hair damp against the pillow, clutching her stuffed rabbit. She looked younger than 10. She looked fragile. I stood in the doorway and made a silent vow. Marlene wanted a war? She wanted to play games with my daughter's self-esteem? She had mistaken my silence for weakness. She had mistaken my boundaries for surrender. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to fight in her living room. I was going to watch. And I was going to document. And I was going to take her down piece by piece. I closed the door softly and went back downstairs. The game had started. The next morning, the sky over Briar Glen was a flat, unapologetic gray. It matched the feeling in my chest. I had barely slept, my mind replaying the image of Ellie sitting on that white carpet with an empty lap while flashbulbs popped around her. I dropped Ellie off at school with extra hugs and a promise that we would get ice cream later, keeping my voice light, pretending the world hadn't shifted on its axis. As soon as she disappeared through the double doors, I pulled my car over to the curb and opened my notes app. I created a new folder. I named it Documentation. It felt cold to do that regarding my own mother, but the time for warmth had passed. I typed in the date, the time, and a bulleted list of what happened at the dinner: exclusion of Ellie, public humiliation, refusal to explain privately, shifting justification. Then I texted Jenna, "Coffee? I am at the daily grind. I know you are off today." Jenna Crowley, my sister-in-law, was 33 and arguably the nicest person in the Henderson orbit. She was married to my brother Michael, which meant she had spent the last decade trying to keep the peace between a rock and a hard place. She replied instantly, "I am on my way." When she walked into the coffee shop 20 minutes later, she looked tired. She was wearing oversized sunglasses and her hair was pulled back in a messy bun that didn't look intentional. She ordered a black coffee, sat down opposite me, and didn't make eye contact. "I am sorry," she said. I didn't say anything. I just let the apology hang there, waiting to see what she was apologizing for. Was it for the dinner? For staying silent? For the photos? "I should have said something," Jenna said, wrapping her hands around the paper cup. But Michael kicked me under the table, and then Marlene was staring at us, and, God, Sadie, it was awful. It was calculated. I said, Jenna flinched. She looked around the shop to make sure no one was listening. She called me. "Sadie." My stomach tightened. "When?" "2 days ago," Jenna said. "Thursday morning. She called to ask about Theo's size for a jacket she was buying, or so she said. Then she pivoted. She said, "Listen, I am doing something special for the grandkids on Saturday, but I'm going to hold back on Ellie for a bit." I leaned forward. "She told you she was going to exclude her?" Jenna nodded miserably. She spun it. "Sadie, you know how she is. She said she was worried Ellie was struggling with attention span issues. She said you and Mark were having financial trouble and wouldn't be able to afford the monthly plan. So she didn't want to burden you. She made it sound like mercy." "Mercy," I repeated, tasting the bitterness of the word. She told me, "Just go along with it. Jenna, it is for Sadie's own good. If you make a scene, you will just embarrass Sadie." I sat back, absorbing this. My mother had pre-gamed the humiliation. She had planted the seed with the extended family that I was broke or that Ellie was troubled, ensuring that when the moment came, everyone would interpret the exclusion through her lens. Not mine. If Jenna had spoken up, she would have felt like she was exposing my secret financial ruin. "We are not having financial trouble, Jenna," I said quietly, "and Ellie does not have attention span issues. She reads 4 books a week." "I know," Jenna whispered. "I know. I froze. And then Theo got the phone, and he was so happy, and I felt like if I said anything, I would be ruining it for him. It is a trap. Sadie, she puts you in these positions where the only way to do the right thing is to be the person who ruins the party. That was Marlene's genius. She weaponized social awkwardness. She banked on the fact that decent people would rather tolerate cruelty than cause a scene." "Thank you for telling me." I said. "What are you going to do?" Jenna asked. "I'm going to figure out what game she's really playing." I said, "Because nobody spends $7,000 just to teach a 10-year-old a lesson about focus." Jenna looked down at her coffee. "About that," she said. "There was something else." "What?" "Theo." She said, "Last night, after we got home. He was setting up the phone. He mentioned something weird. He said Grandma made him sign a paper." "A paper?" I asked. "Like a card?" "No," Jenna said, "like a document. He said she took him into the kitchen while we were getting drinks and asked him to sign something. She told him it was for the warranty." I frowned. "You do not need a 12-year-old's signature for a warranty. You need a receipt." "I know," Jenna said. "But you know Theo. He felt grown up. He signed it." "Did she make the other kids sign?" I asked. "I think so." Jenna said, "Lila mentioned something about signing the guest book, but I didn't think twice about it until Theo said warranty." This was wrong. This was entirely wrong. "Can you get Theo to tell you exactly what it looked like?" I asked, "without scaring him?" "I can try," Jenna said. "But Sadie, be careful. She is on a warpath. She sent Michael a text this morning saying she is rethinking the family trust distribution based on loyalty." I let out a short, dry laugh. Of course she is. I left Jenna at the coffee shop and drove toward my brother's house. But I didn't go in. I just needed to verify something. I parked down the street and texted Jenna to ask for a photo of the phone box if they still had it. She sent it 5 minutes later, a picture of the back of the box. There was a sticker on the plastic wrap. Lakeview Wireless / sold to Henderson Fam / ref 9942. I stared at the image, the reference number. I started the car and drove downtown. Lakeview Wireless was exactly as I remembered it. A boutique shop with exposed brick walls, succulents in geometric pots, and a sales staff that looked like they curated art galleries on the weekends. It was the kind of place you went if you wanted to feel important while buying a charger. I walked in, holding my own phone. A young man with a carefully groomed beard looked up from an iPad. "Hi there. Welcome to Lakeview," he said. "Hi," I said, putting on my best chaotic but charming mom face. "I am hoping you can help me. My mother was in here recently. Marlene Henderson? She bought a fleet of phones for the grandkids." The clerk's face lit up. "Oh, Mrs. Henderson? Yes, of course. The patron bundle. She is a legend. 7 Pro Maxes in one go. We rarely see that kind of volume outside of corporate accounts. Patron bundle." The phrase snagged in my ear. But I kept smiling. "Right. The patron bundle." I said, "Well, I am the mom of one of the grandkids, and I am trying to coordinate cases with my sister-in-law so the kids do not mix them up. I wanted to see if the protection plan she bought covers water damage. We are going to the beach next month." "Oh, absolutely," the clerk said, tapping on his screen. "The Platinum Shield covers everything. Drops, spills, theft. Let me just pull up the account." He typed for a moment. "Here we go. Henderson family membership. Yes, 7 devices, all covered under the Platinum Shield." "Great," I said, "and just to double check, is that listed under her name or—" I just want to make sure I can call in a claim if I need to. Without bugging her, the clerk squinted at the screen. "Actually, the primary contact for the protection plan is listed as Sadie Henderson." My heart stopped. "Me?" I asked. "Yes," he said. "Sadie Henderson. Is that you?" "Yes," I said, my voice sounding distant. "Okay, perfect," he said. "So you are authorized. The plan is linked to your profile. It looks like she used your information to set up the extended warranty registration, probably to make it easier for you parents to manage repairs. That was nice of her." "Nice? She had used my name, my legal name." "Does it list my address?" I asked. He nodded. 12 Oak Creek Drive? That was my house. And this is going to sound silly, I said, forcing a laugh. But what email is that linked to? I have like 3 different ones and I never know which one I'm supposed to check for notifications. He scrolled down. It looks like it is set to shenderson@briarglencivic.org. I froze. Briar Glen Civic. Org. I had never worked for an organization called Briar Glen Civic. I didn't have an email address there. "Is there a copy of the receipt or the contract?" I asked. "I really need to see the terms. I can print a summary." He said, "But the full contract was signed digitally at the point of sale. I cannot reprint the signature page for privacy reasons." Ironically, I took the summary he offered. It was a single sheet of paper. It listed the 7 phones. It listed the total cost, $11,400, including the protection plans and the setup fees. And at the bottom, under Build 2, it didn't say Marlene Henderson. It said, Briar Glen Civic Partners / Project Connect. "Thank you," I said. "You have been so helpful." I walked out of the store, my legs feeling like lead. I got into my car and locked the doors. I sat there for a long time, staring at the paper. Marlene hadn't paid for the phones. Or rather, she hadn't paid for them with her personal checking account. She had billed them to something called Briar Glen Civic Partners, under a project called Connect, and she had attached my name and my address to the warranty, creating a fake email address to route the notifications. Why? Why use my name if she was excluding my daughter? Because she needed a parent. The thought hit me like a physical blow. If this was a grant, or a program, or a nonprofit initiative, she probably needed to show that the devices were going to legitimate families. She needed a demographic. She needed a Sadie Henderson, age 32, resident of Briar Glen. She had used my identity to validate the purchase of the gifts she used to humiliate my child. I pulled out my phone and typed Briar Glen Civic Partners into the search bar. The website was polished, filled with stock photos of diverse hands holding saplings and smiling seniors. It was a local community nonprofit, dedicated to enhancing the connectivity and cultural fabric of Briar Glen. I scrolled to the Our Supporters page. There, under Patron Circle, was a list of names: the local car dealership owner, the bank president, and Marlene Henderson. I clicked on the Programs tab. There was a section called Digital Forward, providing technology access to underserved youth and community leaders. My hands were shaking. She was laundering her reputation. She was using donor money, or program money meant for underserved youth, to buy iPhones for her suburban, upper-middle-class grandchildren. And she was justifying it by listing them as participants in a program I knew nothing about. And because I was the troublemaker, because I was the one she wanted to control. She had put the liability in my name. If anyone checked the warranty, if anyone audited the user list, it wasn't Marlene Henderson holding the bag. It was Sadie. I drove home on autopilot. When I walked in the door, Mark was in the kitchen, making a sandwich. He took one look at my face and put the knife down. "What?" he asked. "What did she do?" I slapped the paper from the store onto the counter. "She didn't buy the phones. Mark, the nonprofit she donates to, bought them." "What?" Mark picked up the paper. "Briar Glen Civic Partners? Isn't that the group that runs the Harvest Festival?" "Yes," I said. "She billed $11,000 of electronics to a civic program, and she put the protection plan in my name. She created a fake email address for me. Mark, she impersonated me to secure the warranty." Mark's face went red. "That is fraud. Sadie, that is straight-up identity theft." I shook my head. "It is not that simple. She will say she was doing me a favor. She will say she put it in my name so I could manage the repairs if Ellie ever got a phone. She will twist it. I do not care how she twists it," Mark shouted. He slammed his hand on the counter. "She used your name to commit embezzlement. We are going to the police." "No," I said sharply. "Why the hell not?" "Because she is my mother, Mark, and because if I go to the police, I blow up the entire family. Michael, Jenna, the cousins, they all have these phones now. If I report this, the police go to their houses. They confiscate the devices. Theo loses his phone. Lila loses hers. And who does everyone blame? Not Marlene. They blame Sadie. They blame me for calling the cops on Grandma over a gift." Mark stared at me. "So you are going to let her get away with it?" "No," I said, pacing the kitchen. "I am not going to let her get away with it, but I am not going to be the one who drops the nuke. I need to understand the blast radius first." We argued for the next hour. It was a quiet, intense argument. Mark wanted action. He wanted to drive over to Marlene's house and scream in her face. He wanted to threaten her with jail time. I wanted leverage. "I need to know what Theo signed." I said, "I need to know what that email address is being used for. If she created an email for me, she has access to it. She is receiving messages intended for me." "Sadie, this is dangerous," Mark said. His voice was tired now. "She is escalating. This isn't just emotional manipulation anymore. This is legal exposure." "I know," I said, "which is why we have to be smarter than her." My phone rang. I looked at the screen. It was my father, Raymond Henderson. He almost never called. In the Henderson household, Marlene was the press secretary, the general, and the executioner. Dad was the furniture. He existed in the background, nodding at the right times, signing the checks, and retreating to his garage workshop whenever the emotional temperature rose above 60 degrees. I picked up. "Hello? Sadie?" His voice sounded thin, reedy. "Hi, Dad. I heard about the dinner," he said. "Did you?" I asked. "I assumed you were there. You were sitting at the head of the table. Dad, I know, he said. I know. Things moved so fast. Marlene was very set on how it should go. He sounded breathless, like he had walked up a flight of stairs. Dad, why are you calling? I asked. I just wanted to say, please do not make this a war. Sadie. I laughed, a harsh sound. She excluded my daughter to punish me. Dad, she committed fraud using my name. The war is already here. I am just the casualty. There was a silence on the other end. It is tied to the paperwork. Sadie, he whispered. I froze. What paperwork? I asked. The phones, he said. It is not just phones. It is the structure. She is moving things around. Dad, what are you talking about? What paperwork? I cannot talk on this line, he said abruptly. What do you mean you cannot talk on this line? Are you at home? She has the monitors on, he said. The baby monitors? No, the smart home things. She listens to the recordings to check the cleaning lady. Sadie, listen to me. Meet me at the diner, the one on Route 9, the Red Fox. When? Tonight, he said. 7 o'clock. Do not tell your mother. Dad. He hung up. I stared at the phone. My father, a man who hadn't made an independent decision since 1995, was asking for a clandestine meeting at a roadside diner. What did he say? Mark asked. He said it is tied to the paperwork, I said, and he thinks she is bugging their own house. I looked at Mark. The anger in his eyes had been replaced by something else. Concern. Real. Deep concern. Sadie, Mark said, this isn't normal, even for her. This is manic. I went to my laptop. I needed to see if I could access the email address the clerk had given me, shenderson@briarglencivic.org. I tried to log into the nonprofit's portal. I didn't have a password. I clicked Forgot Password. The system prompted me. Enter your email address to reset your password. I typed in the fake email. A reset link has been sent to the recovery email on file. margmail.com. Marlene's personal email. She had created an account for me. But she held the keys. I couldn't get in. I sat there, feeling the walls closing in. She had built a digital effigy of me. She could send emails as me. She could approve documents as me. Then, my personal email pinged. I switched tabs. It was an automated message. From Briar Glen Civic Partners. Subject: Welcome to the Patron Portal. I clicked it open. Dear Sadie, welcome to the Briar Glen Civic Partners Patron Portal. Your profile has been successfully linked to the Henderson Family Trust Circle. Thank you for your pledge. To view your upcoming volunteer shifts and donation schedule, please click here. My breath caught in my throat. She hadn't just used my name for a warranty. She had signed me up as a donor. She had pledged money, my money, or money she was promising in my name, to this organization. I looked at the timestamp. It was sent 1 minute ago. Marlene was online. She was doing this right now. She was building the paper trail. I grabbed my purse. I am going to the diner. I told Mark, I am coming with you. He said, no. I said, if we both go, who watches Ellie? And if Marlene calls here and nobody answers, she will get suspicious. You stay with Ellie. Keep the doors locked. I walked out to my car. The evening air was cooling down, but I was sweating. I had thought this was about a phone. I had thought this was about favoritism. But as I pulled out of the driveway, checking my rearview mirror to make sure no one was following me, I realized I was wrong. This was about ownership. Marlene was building a cage, and she was using my own name to weld the bars shut. The Red Fox Diner sat on a stretch of 2-lane highway in Cedar Hollow, a hamlet that consisted mostly of a gas station, a post office, and a lingering sense of economic abandonment. It was the kind of place where the vinyl booths were patched with duct tape and the coffee was served boiling hot to distract you from the taste. I pulled into the gravel lot at 6:58. My father's truck was already there, parked in the shadows away from the streetlights. When I walked in, the bell above the door chimed with a harsh, metallic rattle. The place was empty except for a trucker at the counter and my father, Raymond Henderson, sitting in a corner booth with his back to the door. He was wearing his canvas barn jacket, the one he had owned since I was in high school. And he looked smaller inside it than I remembered. I slid into the booth opposite him. He jumped slightly, his coffee splashing over the rim of his mug onto the formica table. "Hi, Dad," I said. "Sadie," he said. He grabbed a napkin and furiously wiped at the spill. "I didn't think you would come. You told me it was about the paperwork." I said, "I am here." He looked around the diner, scanning the empty tables as if Marlene might materialize from behind the pie case. He looked tired, not just sleepy, but deeply, spiritually exhausted. His eyes were rimmed with red, and there was a tremor in his hand when he set the napkin down. "She does not know I am here," he said. "She thinks I went to the hardware store in Easton." "Dad, what is going on?" I asked. "Why are you whispering?" Raymond took a long sip of coffee. He put the mug down and clasped his hands together. "Your mother. She means well. Sadie, you have to understand that, in her head, she is saving this family. Saving us from what?" I asked. "From drifting," he said. "From falling apart. Ever since that scare she had in February." I frowned. "What scare?" Raymond looked at me, surprised. "She didn't tell you?" "No," I said. "We have barely spoken since Christmas." She had a palpitation. He said, "Her heart rate went up to 180 while she was gardening. The doctors at the urgent care said it was stress and caffeine, mostly, but it scared her. It really scared her. Sadie, she came home that night and she looked at me and said, 'Raymond, if I die tomorrow, who keeps them together?'" I felt a flicker of sympathy, but it was quickly extinguished by the memory of Ellie's face looking at that empty lap. "So because she had a panic attack, she decided to humiliate my daughter?" I asked. "It is not about humiliation," Raymond insisted, his voice pleading. "It is about assessment. She calls it the proof of gratitude." "The what?" "The proof of gratitude," he repeated. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He hesitated, then slid it across the table to me. It wasn't a legal document. It was a photocopy of a page from a spiral notebook. Marlene's handwriting was unmistakable, looped, sharp, and aggressive. At the top, it read, "Grandkids Fund / Pinecrest Harbor Credit Union." Below that was a list, a grid. Actually, the names of the grandchildren were across the top. Down the side were categories: birthday response time, visit frequency, behavior in public, respect for elders, parental alignment. There were check marks and little X marks next to the names. Theo had a row of checks. Lila had checks. Under Ellie, the column was a sea of red ink. Visit frequency, low, parental alignment, hostile, gratitude, index, pending. I stared at the paper. My hands started to shake, vibrating against the table edge. "She is keeping score." I whispered. Raymond nodded miserably. "She calls it the scorecard. She is rating her grandchildren like they are employees," I said, my voice rising. "She is tracking their performance. Keep your voice down," Raymond hissed. "Dad, this is sick." I said, "This isn't a family. This is a performance review. She set up the fund at Pinecrest Harbor 3 months ago," Raymond said, looking down at his coffee. "She put a significant amount of money in it. She says it is for college, or weddings, or down payments. But she wrote bylaws. Sadie, it is not a trust. It is a managed account. She controls the release of funds based on the scorecard." "And the iPhones?" I asked. "A test," he said. "She wanted to see who was grateful. She wanted to see who was invested in the family brand." "And Ellie failed?" I asked. "Ellie failed because she is 10 and lives across town?" "No," Raymond said softly. "Ellie failed because of you." He pointed to the line on the paper. "Parental alignment. Hostile. She thinks you are turning Ellie against us." Raymond said, "Because you stopped coming to Sunday dinners. Because you didn't let us take Ellie to Disney last year." Marlene says you are building a wall, and she has to break it down. She thinks if she withholds the extras, the phones, the trips, you will realize you cannot provide the same lifestyle she can. And you will come back. I sat back against the vinyl booth. The air in the diner felt thin. It was a siege strategy. She was starving us out. She was deliberately creating a disparity between Ellie and her cousins to force me to beg for resources. Does she know you have this copy? I asked, tapping the paper. No, Raymond said. I found it in her desk. I made a copy at the library. Why are you showing me this? Dad? Because I'm scared. Sadie, he said. He looked up, and his eyes were wet. She is moving money, real money. She is talking about rewriting the will to tie everything to this fund. If you do not fall in line, she is going to cut you out. And not just you. She is going to make sure Ellie gets nothing. I don't care about the money. I said, you should, Raymond said sharply. It is a lot of money. Sadie, your grandfather left us more than you know. And it is not just about the inheritance. It is about right now. She is using your name. I stiffened. I know. I went to Lakeview Wireless. I know about the protection plan. It is more than the phones. Raymond said. He leaned in, lowering his voice to a whisper. She put you down as a co-signer on the account at Pinecrest. What? I demanded. She brought papers home last week. He said. She told me she needed me to witness a signature for the fund. But the papers, they had your social security number on them. I saw it. She has your old tax returns in the file cabinet. She used them to fill out the application. I felt the blood drain from my face. She opened a bank account in my name? A joint account, Raymond corrected, with her. She said it was to make it easier to transfer money to you once you came around. But Sadie, if her name is on it, and your name is on it, and she is moving money through it. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Dad, that is a felony. I said, I know, he whispered. But if you report her, if I report her, she goes to jail. I said, or at least she gets investigated, and the family explodes. You cannot report her, Raymond said, gripping the edge of the table. It would kill her, literally. Her heart. I looked at my father. I saw the fear in him. He wasn't afraid for me. He was afraid of losing the woman who had controlled his life for 40 years, even if she was a monster. He was afraid of the silence that would follow the explosion. I am not going to report her today, I said, but I need you to do something for me. Anything, he said. I need you to stop signing things. I said, if she puts a paper in front of you, you drop your pen, you spill your coffee, you lose your glasses, do not witness another signature. Can you do that? He nodded slowly. I can do that. I stood up. I took the photocopy of the scorecard. Go home. Dad, I said, before she notices you are gone. He looked at me, and for a second, I saw the father I used to have, the one who taught me how to ride a bike before he retreated into the background. I am sorry. Sadie, he said. I know. I said. I walked out of the diner and into the night. The drive back to Briar Glen was a blur of highway lights and dark trees. My mind was racing, resorting my entire history, the scorecard. It explained everything. It explained why my brother Michael, who always called Mom on Sundays, got the down payment for his house gifted to him, while I had to take out a second mortgage for our roof. I had always thought it was just circumstance. Now I knew it was policy. I remembered being 7 years old, getting a bicycle 3 weeks after my birthday because I had finally apologized for having an attitude about my party dress. I remembered the affection that came only after I'd cleaned the kitchen exactly the way she liked. It hadn't been love. It had been payment for services rendered, and now she was doing it to Ellie. She was teaching my daughter that love was something you earned by being compliant. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I needed professional help, not a therapist, a lawyer. The next morning, I took a half day off work. I told Mark I had a dentist appointment. He offered to come, but I needed to do this alone. I needed to hear the cold, hard facts without Mark's protective anger clouding the room. Priya Nandel's office was in a converted Victorian house on Elm Street, 3 blocks from the library. She was a family law attorney who specialized in high-conflict dynamics, which was the polite term for rich people who hated each other. Priya was in her 40s, wearing a sharp blazer and glasses that looked like they cost more than my first wedding ring. She listened to me for 20 minutes without interrupting. She looked at the photocopy of the scorecard. She looked at the summary from Lakeview Wireless. When I finished, she took off her glasses and rubbed the bridge of her nose. "Okay," she said. "First of all, Sadie, take a breath. You are doing the right thing by documenting this." "Is it illegal?" I asked. "What she is doing?" Priya sighed. "It is a gray area that is about a mile wide. The identity use? Yes, that is technically fraud. Opening an account in your name without your consent is illegal. But in family situations, prosecutors are very hesitant to touch it unless there is significant financial loss. If she is putting money into an account in your name, a jury might see that as generosity, not theft. Marlene could argue she was acting as your agent for your benefit." "And the scorecard?" I asked. Priya tapped the paper. "Morally repugnant?" "Yes." "Illegal?" "No. People are allowed to condition their gifts. They are allowed to be manipulative with their own money. This is what we call estate conditioning. It is very common in controlling families. The matriarch uses the promise of inheritance to shape the behavior of the heirs. It is a leash. So I can do nothing?" I asked. "No," Priya said. "You can do a lot, but you have to decide what your goal is. Is your goal to put your mother in handcuffs? Or is your goal to protect your daughter and your sanity?" "I want to protect Ellie," I said, "and I want my name off those accounts. Then we need to be surgical," Priya said. She pulled a notepad closer. "Here are your 3 steps," she said. 1. We stop the identity bleed. You need to freeze your credit at all 3 bureaus today, right now. That stops her from opening anything else. 2. She continued, you need to send a written notice, certified mail, stating that you do not consent to any accounts, memberships, or contracts in your name. We do not frame it as an accusation of fraud yet. We frame it as a clarification of records. It puts her on notice. If she does it again after that letter, it is willful identity theft, and then we have a real case. And 3? I asked. 3 is the hard part. Priya said, you have to communicate in writing. No more phone calls. No more kitchen conversations. You force her onto the record. If she wants to discuss Ellie, she does it by email. She won't do that. I said, she hates leaving a trail. Exactly, Priya said. That is the point. If she refuses to email, she loses access. You are closing the blast doors. She leaned forward. Sadie, listen to me. This fund at the credit union, if your name is on it, you are liable for it. If she overdraws it, or if she uses it for something illicit, the bank comes after you. You need to find out exactly what is in that account. I nodded. I knew she was right. I left the office feeling heavier, but steadier. I had a plan. I sat in my car outside Priya's office and pulled up the banking app for my own personal account. I wanted to check my credit score, just to see if there were any alerts. I scrolled through my recent transactions, grocery store, gas station, mortgage payment, and then I saw it, a pending charge. Briar Glen Civic Partners, $250. I stared at the screen. It wasn't a one-time donation. It was recurring. I clicked on the transaction details. Monthly sustainer pledge. She hadn't just used my name to buy the phones. She had set up a monthly tithe from my debit card? No, that was impossible. She didn't have my debit card number. Unless, I remembered a year ago, we had gone shopping for school supplies. I had forgotten my wallet in the car. Marlene had offered to pay, and I had said no. I have the app on my phone. I had read the numbers off my digital wallet to the cashier. Marlene had been standing right next to me. She had a memory like a steel trap. She had memorized my card number? Or maybe she had taken a picture of my card when I left my purse unattended at a family barbecue. However she did it. She was now siphoning $250 a month out of my checking account to pay for her reputation laundering. The audacity was breathtaking. She was using my money to donate to her charity, to buy gifts for the grandchildren she liked, while excluding my daughter. I didn't call Marlene. I called the number on the transaction line, Briar Glen Civic Partners. A man answered. His voice was warm, professional. Briar Glen Civic. This is Evan. Hi, I said, keeping my voice level. My name is Sadie Henderson. I am calling about a transaction on my account. Oh, hello, Mrs. Henderson, Evan said. We just saw your name pop up in the system. Thank you so much for joining the patron circle. Your support means the world to us. I took a deep breath. Evan, I need you to listen to me carefully. I did not authorize that donation. There was a silence on the other end. I beg your pardon? Evan asked. I did not sign up for the patron circle. I said, I did not authorize a recurring charge of $250. Someone used my information without my consent. Oh, the warmth drained out of his voice, replaced by confusion and alarm. Are you sure? The account was created through our portal yesterday. It is linked to the Henderson family profile. I am sure. I said, I need you to cancel that transaction immediately, and I need you to tell me exactly who set up the account. I can certainly pause the donation. Mrs. Henderson, Evan said, we can issue a refund for the pending charge. As for who set it up, let me look at the logs. I heard the clicking of a keyboard. It looks like the account was created by a user logged in as M. Henderson Admin. Evan said slowly, That is Marlene, isn't it? She is one of our board liaisons. Yes, I said. That is my mother. I see, Evan said. His voice was heavy with the awkwardness of a man realizing he had stepped into a domestic landmine. Mrs. Henderson. Sadie. I am very sorry. We assumed since it was a family bundle. It wasn't. I said, please refund the money, and please remove my credit card information from your system. Consider it done, he said. I will handle this personally. You won't see another charge. Thank you. Evan. I hung up. I had stopped the bleeding. But I knew the reaction was coming. Marlene would see the notification that the donation had been canceled. She would know I knew. I drove home, bracing myself for the phone to ring, but it didn't ring. When I pulled into the driveway, the house was quiet. Mark's car was there. I walked up the front steps and saw a package sitting on the doormat. It was a bright pink padded envelope. It was addressed to Miss Ellie Henderson. There was no return address, but the handwriting was unmistakable. I picked it up. It felt light, soft. I walked inside. Mark was in the living room, reading a book on the sofa while Ellie lay on the floor, drawing in her sketchbook. Mom, Ellie said, jumping up. You are home early. Hi, sweetie, I said, hiding the package behind my back. What is that? Ellie asked. She had eagle eyes. Just mail. I said, Is it for me? She asked. I saw pink. I hesitated. If I withheld it, I was doing exactly what Marlene did, controlling information. If I gave it to her, I was letting the Trojan horse into my living room. It is from Grandma. I said. Ellie's face lit up, then fell, then lit up again. It was a painful cycle to watch. Did she send the phone? Ellie asked. I don't think so. Honey, I said, it is too soft. I handed her the envelope. Mark looked at me over the top of his book. His eyebrows raised. I gave him a small shake of my head. Let her open it. Ellie tore open the envelope. She pulled out a hoodie. It was a tie-dye sweatshirt, exactly the kind the popular girls at school were wearing. It was expensive. There was more. A sheet of premium stickers, a bag of artisanal gummy bears, and a card. Ellie opened the card. She read it silently, then smiled. She says she misses me, Ellie said. May I see? I asked. Ellie handed me the card. It was a picture of a kitten hanging from a branch. Hang in there. Inside. Marlene had written, My dearest Ellie, I saw this hoodie and thought of you immediately. You are always my stylish girl. I am sorry about the mix-up on Saturday. We will fix this soon. I love you to the moon and back. Love, Grandma. We will fix this soon. It sounded like a promise, but to me, it sounded like a threat. It implied that the situation was broken and that we, meaning Marlene and Ellie, would fix it. Implicitly, I was the obstacle. She was bypassing me. She was reaching directly to the child, buying her affection with tie-dye and gummies, promising a resolution that I hadn't agreed to. She was grooming Ellie to believe that Grandma was the benevolent savior and Mom was the gatekeeper. "I love the hoodie," Ellie said, holding it up against her chest. "Can I call her to say thank you?" I felt a knot in my stomach. "Not right now." "Elle," I said, "Grandma is probably busy with her gardening. We can send a thank you card. But I want to call." Ellie whined. "Just for a second?" "No," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. Ellie flinched. I softened my tone. "Sorry. Honey, I have a headache. Let's just enjoy the hoodie for now, okay? Go try it on." Ellie ran upstairs. I looked at Mark. He had put his book down. "She is love-bombing her," Mark said. "I know." I said, "She kicks her in the teeth on Saturday, and on Tuesday she sends candy. It is classic cycle of abuse. She wants Ellie to be confused. She wants Ellie to crave the approval." I looked at the card again. "We will fix this soon. She knows I canceled the donation." I said, "This is her counter move. She is securing her alliance with the child before the adult war starts." I walked into the kitchen and opened my laptop. I was done with phone calls. I was done with diners. I was done with being polite. I opened a new email draft. To Marlene Henderson. Mark Henderson, Object. Clarification of accounts and communication boundaries. My fingers hovered over the keys. I channeled Priya. I channeled the steady middle-class mom, who was tired of being a pawn. Mom, I am writing this to ensure there are no misunderstandings moving forward. 1. Regarding the events of Saturday night, I am requesting a written explanation for why Ellie was excluded from the gifts given to the other grandchildren. "She isn't ready" is not a sufficient explanation given her age and maturity compared to her cousins. We need to understand the criteria you are using so we can manage Ellie's expectations. 2. I have discovered that my name and personal information were used to open an account with Briar Glen Civic Partners and to secure warranty protection plans at Lakeview Wireless. I did not consent to these actions. Please confirm in writing that no other financial accounts, memberships, or contracts exist with my name attached to them. If there are others, I need a list immediately so I can update my records. 3. Please do not discuss adult conflicts, financial decisions, or fixing the situation with Ellie directly. Gifts are welcome, but they cannot come with emotional strings or promises that bypass Mark and me. We love you and want a healthy relationship, but that relationship must be built on transparency and respect for our role as Ellie's parents. Sadie. I read it over. It was calm. It was factual. It was reasonable. And I knew, with absolute certainty, that it was going to make her absolutely furious. I hit send. I expected my email to trigger a nuclear explosion. I braced for the weeping voicemail, the text tirade in all caps, or the silent treatment that could last until Easter. Instead, I got a calendar invite. Event: Family Gratitude Night, Community Mixer, Location: Briar Glen Civic Partners Hall. Host: Marlene Henderson. Message: Sadie. I received your email. I think we need to clear the air. Let's talk in person. Surrounded by the things that matter. It was a masterstroke of evasion. She wasn't refusing to talk. She was just setting the stage so that if I raised my voice, I would be the crazy daughter shouting at a charity event. She was insulating herself with witnesses. I showed the invite to Mark. "She wants a public audience," he said, shaking his head. "She knows you won't make a scene in front of the mayor." "She is right," I said. "I won't make a scene. But I am going." "We are not taking Ellie," Mark stated firmly. "Absolutely not." I agreed. I called Talia Brooks, my best friend since sophomore year of high school. Talia was the kind of friend who would help you bury a body and bring snacks for the drive. She agreed to come over and watch Ellie for the evening. "Tell her we are going to a boring tax seminar." I told Talia. "Done," Talia said. "I will bring the Mario Kart. We will be fine." When the evening of the event arrived, I dressed like I was going to court. Black blazer, dark jeans, low heels. Mark wore a button-down but refused to wear a tie. The Briar Glen Civic Partners Hall was a renovated firehouse with exposed brick and tasteful industrial lighting. When we walked in, the room was already buzzing. There were probably 50 people there, local business owners, members of the school board, and of course, the entire Henderson clan. Marlene was in her element. She was standing near the buffet table, wearing a cream-colored pantsuit that made her look like a benevolent senator. She was holding court, laughing at a joke made by the town council president. As soon as she saw us, her smile widened, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Sadie! Mark, you made it!" she called out, loud enough for half the room to hear. She swept over to us, arms open. I let her hug me, my body stiff as a board. "Where is my sweet Ellie?" Marlene asked, looking behind us. "She is at home," I said. "We thought it was best to keep this adult-only tonight." Marlene's face fell into a perfect mask of disappointment. "Oh, what a shame. I had a little spot for her in the program." "The program?" I asked. Marlene waved a hand. "Just a little gratitude moment. Nothing big." I looked around the room. At the front, a projector was beaming a slideshow onto a large screen. It was a montage of family memories. There was a photo of my brother Michael's wedding, a photo of my cousin Bree's baby shower, a photo of the grandkids at the beach, all of them except Ellie, because she had been at a science camp that weekend. The curation was subtle, but it was there. It was a visual narrative of the good family members. "We need to talk." "Mom," I said quietly. "Not now." "Sadie," she whispered, her smile fixed in place. "People are watching. Grab a drink. Mingle. We will talk after the speeches." She breezed away to greet the vice principal of the middle school. I felt a hand on my arm. It was my niece, Lila. She was 14, wearing the new iPhone on a lanyard around her neck like a talisman. She looked uncomfortable. "Aunt Sadie?" she whispered. "Hey, Lila." I said, "I love your dress." "Thanks," she said. She looked around to make sure Marlene wasn't within earshot. "Can I ask you something weird?" "Sure," I said. "Did you call Grandma toxic last Thanksgiving?" I blinked. "What? Grandma asked me?" Lila said, rushing the words. She pulled me aside before the speeches. She said, "Lila, honey, do you remember when Aunt Sadie called me toxic in the kitchen last year? I need you to confirm that for my memory book." I felt a cold chill. I had never called Marlene toxic to her face. I had certainly never done it in front of Lila. "Lila?" I said. "I never said that. I didn't think so." Lila said, "I told her I didn't remember that. She got kind of mad. She said I must have been distracted." She is writing things down. Aunt Sadie, in a little notebook. "Thank you for telling me." I said. Lila drifted away, looking relieved to escape the line of fire. Marlene was building a case. She wasn't just defending herself. She was gathering testimony. She was trying to get a minor to corroborate a fabricated event to paint me as the aggressor. The lights dimmed. "Welcome-o, everyone," Marlene's voice boomed from the microphone at the podium. She gave a speech about community, about the importance of roots, about how Briar Glen was more than a town. It was a family. It was polished, charming, and utterly hollow. "And now," she said, "I want to invite my grandchildren up here, the future of our family." My stomach dropped. Theo, Lila, the twins, they all filed up onto the stage. They stood in a line, looking awkward under the spotlight. "We have started a new tradition," Marlene announced, "the gratitude pledge. I want each of you to say one thing you are thankful for this year. It was a trap. It was a public loyalty test." Theo leaned into the mic. "I am thankful for, the new phone?" The room chuckled. Marlene beamed. Lila said, "I am thankful for family dinners." One by one. They recited their lines. It was creepy not because it was forced, but because it was so normal. It normalized the idea that their affection was something to be performed for an audience. If Ellie had been here, she would have been up there. And if she hadn't received a phone, she would have been the only one standing there with empty hands, forced to say she was grateful for a grandmother who excluded her. I squeezed Mark's hand so hard, my nails dug into his palm. After the applause died down, the room broke into conversation again. I saw Marlene stepping out onto the side patio for fresh air. Now, I said to Mark. We followed her. The patio was empty, lit by a single string of fairy lights. The noise of the party was muffled by the glass doors. Marlene turned around as the door clicked shut. She took a sip of her white wine. Well, she said, that went well. Didn't it? Cut the crap. Mom, I said. Sadie. Language. She tutted. I pulled my phone out of my pocket. I set it on the patio table. Screen up. The voice memo app was open. The red recording bar was pulsing. I am recording this. Mom, I said. Pennsylvania is a two-party consent state for wiretapping. So I am telling you right now, I am recording this conversation. If you do not want to be recorded, you can stop talking. Marlene stared at the phone. She laughed. A brittle, incredulous sound. You are recording me? At a charity event? You have lost your mind. Sadie, I haven't lost anything. I said, I sent you an email. I asked for an explanation. You invited me to a party. So here we are. Why did you exclude Ellie? Marlene sighed. She set her wine glass down. Because she isn't ready. Sadie. I told you. Bullshit. I said, Theo is 12. He is posting TikToks at the dinner table. Ellie is 10. She reads Austen. It is not about readiness. Fine. Marlene snapped. It is about responsibility. Ellie is spoiled. Sadie, you give her everything she wants. She doesn't understand the value of $1. I wanted her to learn that you do not just get things because you exist. You get things because you earn them. How does a 10-year-old earn a $1,000 phone? I asked. By signing a contract? By signing the warranty you made Theo sign? Marlene's eyes flickered. You spoke to Theo? I spoke to everyone. I said, I went to Lakeview Wireless. I know you used my name to buy the protection plans. I know you used the nonprofit's money to buy the phones. Marlene's face went deadly still. That was a grant, she said. The Digital Forward Initiative. It is perfectly legal. Is it legal to put my name on the warranty without my permission? I asked. Is it legal to create a fake email address to route the notifications to yourself? I was protecting you, Marlene hissed. She took a step toward me. If the phones break, the liability is on the user. I put it in your name so if Ellie broke it, which she would, it wouldn't come out of the foundation's pocket. I was doing you a favor. Sadie. So now Ellie was going to get a phone? I asked. I thought she wasn't ready. I was going to give it to her eventually, Marlene cried. Her voice was rising, losing its composure. Once she showed some respect. Once you showed some respect. There it is. I said, it wasn't about Ellie, was it? I asked. It was about me. Marlene glared at me. Her mask was gone. The benevolent matriarch had dissolved, leaving the bitter, controlling woman underneath. You think you are so superior. Sadie, she spat. You stop coming to Sunday dinners. You decline the trips. You treat this family like it is a burden. You think you can just opt out of the obligations but still get the benefits? No, that is not how the world works. So you hurt my daughter to teach me a lesson? I asked. I didn't hurt her, Marlene said. I taught her that her mother's choices have consequences. If you want to be part of this family, Sadie, you have to participate. You have to be present. You have to show up. And if you don't, then you don't get the perks. I looked down at the phone recording on the table. Thank you, I said. For what? Marlene asked. For admitting it. I said, it is not about maturity. It is not about focus. It is a transaction. You are buying access to my child, and when I do not sell, you punish her. I picked up the phone and stopped the recording. We are leaving. I said, you walk away now. Sadie, and you are done. Marlene warned. Her voice was low. Dangerous. I mean it. I am meeting with the estate planner next week. Do it. I said, write me out. I don't care. I turned to the glass door. Mark was waiting for me. He looked furious, but proud. As we walked back through the hall, a man in a gray suit intercepted us. It was Evan Sutter, the director of the nonprofit. "Mrs. Henderson?" he asked. "Sadie, please." I said, "Sadie?" he said. He looked nervous. He glanced toward the patio where Marlene was still standing. "I just wanted to let you know. I looked into that account creation log." "And?" I asked. "The IP address," he said. "It came from the guest Wi-Fi at Pinecrest Harbor Credit Union." I frowned. "The bank?" "Yes," he said. "It was created on Tuesday at 2 p.m. I checked my mental calendar. Tuesday at 2 p.m. Marlene volunteers at the library on Tuesdays." I said, "She wasn't at the bank." Evan shrugged. "I don't know who was there. I just know that is where the signal originated. And, well, I thought you should know. It suggests whoever did it has access to the bank's internal guest network." "Thank you." "Evan," I said. We walked out to the car. Pinecrest Harbor Credit Union. I said to Mark as we buckled up, "Why would she be at the bank on a Tuesday? Maybe she was moving money." Mark said, "Or maybe she wasn't the one doing it." I said, I pulled out my phone. I had a text from my cousin Bree. Bree was the neutral Switzerland of the family. She rarely took sides. "Sadie, check this." She just posted it in the patron circle chat. Attached was a screenshot. It was a message from Marlene to the private group of donors and family members. If Sadie wants Ellie included, she can show up like family again. We all make choices. I am just trying to keep the circle tight for those who actually care. It was chillingly practical. It wasn't a rant. It was a policy statement. She was framing my exclusion as a natural consequence of my lack of caring. We drove home in silence. My mind was working on the puzzle pieces. The IP address, the bank, the signature my dad mentioned. "Dad," I said aloud. "What?" Mark asked. Evan said the account was created from the bank's guest Wi-Fi. "My dad. He goes to the bank every Tuesday to deposit checks for his woodworking business." Mark looked at me. "You think your dad set up the fake account?" "No," I said. "Dad can barely use a toaster." "But Marlene, she makes him carry her iPad. She makes him run errands." I called my father. He answered on the first ring. "Dad?" I asked. "Were you at the credit union on Tuesday?" "Yes," he said. His voice was shaky. "Why? Did you have Mom's iPad?" "Yes," he said. "She asked me to bring it. She said she needed me to upload a document while I was there because the internet at home was slow." "What document? Dad?" "I don't know." He said, "She opened the page for me. It was just a form. She told me to type in your name and address and hit submit. She said it was for the family registry." I closed my eyes. She had used him. She had used my father as the physical mule to commit the fraud so that her own IP address at home wouldn't be flagged. She had made him the operator. "Dad," I said, "you need to stop. You need to stop doing everything she asks." "I can't." "Sadie," he whispered. I signed the paper. "What paper?" I asked. "The one you told me about at the diner?" "No," he said. "A new one. Tonight. Before the event." She put it in front of me and said, "Sign this to simplify the paperwork for the estate." I didn't read it. "Sadie?" I just signed it. I just wanted her to stop looking at me like that. I felt a wave of nausea. Marlene was moving assets, and she was using the family as witnesses, as accomplices, and as shields. I hung up. We were home. Talia was on the couch, eating popcorn. Ellie was asleep. "How was it?" Talia asked. "It was a crime scene," I said. I sat down at the kitchen table. I was done with email. I was done with phone calls. I opened my laptop and drafted a formal letter. Not an email, a PDF attachment. Notice of boundary and cease of unauthorized use. To Marlene Henderson. Effective immediately. The following boundaries are in place. 1. Ellie Henderson will not attend any family gathering where gifts, money, or resources are used as leverage or rewards for compliance. If you wish to give a gift, it must be cleared through Mark or myself first. 2. All communication regarding Ellie must go through Mark or myself. You are not to contact her directly via phone, mail, or third parties. 3. You are hereby notified to cease and desist all use of my name, identity, and personal information for any accounts, memberships, warranties, or financial instruments. I have documented the unauthorized creation of the Briar Glen Civic Partners account and the Lakeview Wireless contract. Any further use of my identity will be reported to the appropriate authorities as identity theft. 4. We are taking a hiatus from all family events for the next 30 days to reassess our relationship. Sadie and Mark Henderson. I sent it. I expected silence or a rage text. Instead, 10 minutes later, my phone pinged with a Facebook notification. Marlene had posted a status update. It was a picture of a wilting flower. It is so painful when you pour your water and sunshine into a garden, only to have the weeds choke out the beauty. Praying for my ungrateful adult children who have lost their way. Sometimes, tough love is the only love left. It was vague enough to be deniable, but specific enough that everyone in Briar Glen knew exactly who the weeds were. Then the messages started. A text from a P.T. A mom. Hey, hun, saw your mom's post. Is everything okay? She sounds devastated. A message from my aunt. Sadie, you really need to apologize. She is crying in the bathroom. A comment from a neighbor. Marlene is a saint. I hope you guys work this out. She had launched the Whisper campaign. She was turning the community into her army. She was weaponizing her public image to crush my private boundaries. I looked at Mark. She wants a public fight. I said, then let's give her the truth. Mark said, no. I said, the truth doesn't work in comment sections. I closed the laptop. She thinks she has me cornered. I said, she thinks I will fold because I'm afraid of looking bad. I looked at the documentation folder on my phone, the recording, the receipt, the IP address log, but she forgot one thing. I said, what? Mark asked. She forgot that I handle risk management for a living. I said, and she just created a paper trail that leads right back to her own bank account. I wasn't going to argue on Facebook. I was going to follow the money. The social fallout in a town like Briar Glen does not happen with a bang. It happens with a drop in temperature. It started at school pickup on Wednesday afternoon. Usually. The line of parents waiting by the chain-link fence was a chaotic, friendly scrimmage of hello how are yous and plans for weekend playdates. But when I walked up to the gate, a silence rippled outward from where I stood. Like a stone dropped in a stagnant pond, 3 mothers who were normally chatty suddenly found their phone screens fascinating. A father I had known since high school gave me a tight, pained nod and turned his back. I stood there, gripping the strap of my purse, feeling the heat rise up my neck. Marlene's Facebook post about ungrateful children and choking weeds had done its work. She hadn't named me, which was her brilliance. By keeping it vague, she allowed the community to fill in the blanks with their own gossip. And in Briar Glen, the gossip always favored the grandmother who donated to the library fund, not the daughter who worked a corporate job and kept to herself. Sadie, a voice said. I turned. It was Linda Morris, the PTA treasurer. She was wearing a smile that looked like it had been applied with a stencil. Hi, Linda, I said. I saw Marlene's post, Linda said, lowering her voice to a conspiratorial whisper. You know, families go through rough patches, but life is short. My aunt and I didn't speak for 2 years, and I regret it every day. You should just make peace, hun, for the kids, the universal guilt trip card. Thank you for the advice. Linda, I said stiffly, but it is complicated. It is only complicated if you let it be. Linda chirped. Just call her. Be the bigger person. I didn't have the energy to explain that being the bigger person usually just meant making yourself a bigger doormat. Then the bell rang, and the double doors burst open. I saw Ellie immediately. She wasn't running. She was walking slowly, her backpack slung over one shoulder, looking at the ground. When she reached me, she didn't say hello. She just buried her face in my coat. Let's go to the car, I said. We walked in silence. Once we were inside the safety of my SUV, with the doors locked and the windows up, Ellie let out a small, hiccuping sob. "What happened?" I asked, turning in my seat to face her. "Chloe Miller," Ellie said. "What did Chloe say?" "She said her mom told her not to invite me to her birthday party because I make my grandma cry." Ellie whispered, "She said her mom says your grandma is sad because of you." The rage that filled me was white-hot and absolute. It wasn't the slow burn I felt toward Marlene. This was primal. Marlene had exported our dysfunction into the 4th grade. She had weaponized a 10-year-old's social life to pressure me. I unbuckled my seatbelt and climbed into the back seat to hold her. "Chloe's mom is wrong," I said fiercely. "Grandma is not sad because of me. Grandma is having a tantrum because she isn't getting her way. And anyone who is mean to you because of something an adult said is not a friend you want to have. But everyone thinks I am bad," Ellie cried. "You are not bad," I said. "You are the best thing in this family, and we are going to fix this." I didn't mean we were going to fix it by apologizing. I meant we were going to fix it by building a fortress so high that Marlene Henderson could never launch a missile over the walls again. The next morning, Mark and I sat in Priya Nandel's office again. The timeline packet was growing. We had the photos, the recordings, the emails, and now, the social fallout. "We need to stop playing defense," Mark said. He looked tired. He had been up half the night researching harassment laws. Priya nodded. She slid a document across the desk. "This is a formal cease and desist regarding the use of your identity." Priya said, "It is not a lawsuit. Yet, it is a warning shot. It states that you are aware of the accounts at Lakeview Wireless and Briar Glen Civic Partners, and it demands the immediate removal of your name from all unauthorized contracts. It also demands a full accounting of any other instances where your personal information has been used. Send it." I said, "We also need to lock down your financial identity." Priya said, "I want you to freeze your credit with Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax today. It won't stop her from using the accounts she already opened, but it stops her from opening a credit card in your name to fund her next generosity spree." "Done," I said, "and there is one more thing." Priya said, "The bank, Pinecrest Harbor. If there is an account there with your name on it, you have a right to see it. Not just a right, a liability, if she is moving large sums of money. And the IRS gets involved. They come looking for the account holders, both of them. I tried to get info. I said, they stonewalled me. Go back." Priya said, "Do not ask for information. Go in to file a dispute for an unauthorized account. Use those words. Identity theft. Unauthorized signatory. They have to respond to that. It triggers a compliance protocol they cannot ignore." I went to Pinecrest Harbor Credit Union at 10 in the morning. It was a small branch, smelling of stale coffee and floor wax. I asked to speak to the branch manager. A woman named Mrs. Gable came out. She knew Marlene. Everyone knew Marlene. "Mrs. Henderson," Mrs. Gable said, smiling warmly. "Is your mother with you?" "No," I said. "I am here to file a formal dispute regarding an account opened in my name without my presence or consent." Mrs. Gable's smile faltered. "I am not sure I understand." She said, "The Grandkids Fund? Marlene set that up for the family. It is a joint account. I did not sign the signature card. I said, I was not present when it was opened. If my name is on it, it was placed there fraudulently. I want to see the account documents, and I want my name removed." Mrs. Gable looked uncomfortable. She glanced at the security guard, then back at me. "I cannot show you the full transaction history without the primary account holder present." She said, "It is bank policy. It is federal law that I have access to accounts under my social security number." I countered, "I checked my credit report." "Mrs. Gable, this account is listed. If you do not provide me with the records, I will be filing a complaint with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau this afternoon, naming you personally as the obstruction." I channeled every ounce of corporate project manager energy I had. I was calm, I was specific, and I was threatening their compliance rating. "Mrs. Gable pale. "One moment," she said. She went into her office. 10 minutes later, she came out with a folder. "I can show you the current ledger," she said tightly, "but I cannot allow you to withdraw funds without the passbook, which Mrs. Marlene Henderson holds. I don't want the money." I said, "I want the truth." I opened the folder. It was a savings account. But the structure was unusual. It was segmented into sub-allocations, like a budget spreadsheet but with real cash. Theo Henderson, $5,000. Lila Henderson, $5,000. Breeze twins, $2,000 each. And then, at the bottom, Ellie Henderson, $0. Status, pending review. It wasn't a savings fund. It was a payroll. She was allocating money based on the scorecard. Theo and Lila had been paid. Ellie was on probation. I looked closer at the transaction history. There were deposits, regular ones, but there were also withdrawals. Debit. Lakeview Wireless, $11,400. "Wait," I said. I pointed to the line. I thought the phones were paid for by the nonprofit. Mrs. Gable looked at the line. "It appears that was a transfer," she said. "The money was moved from this account to an account held by Briar Glen Civic Partners, and then paid to the vendor." I closed the folder. She was churning the money. She was taking money from the Grandkids Fund, money that was theoretically for the children, moving it to the nonprofit to get a tax deduction or a donor perk, and then using the nonprofit to buy the gifts. She was getting the credit 3 times over. Once for the savings, once for the donation, and once for the gift, and she was using my name to anchor the whole scheme. "I want my name off this account," I said. "Immediately. I will have to process a removal request." Mrs. Gable said, "It will take 48 hours. Marlene will be notified." "Let her be notified," I said. I walked out of the bank. My phone buzzed. It was Jenna. "Can we talk? Please, I feel sick." I met her in the parking lot of the grocery store. It was neutral ground. Away from the prying eyes of Main Street, Jenna was sitting in her minivan, crying. "I am so sorry. Sadie," she sobbed as soon as I opened the passenger door. "I am so sorry." "What happened?" I asked. "I lied to you," she said. "About what?" "About why I didn't stand up for Ellie." She said, "It wasn't just because I was scared of Marlene making a scene." She pulled her phone out of her purse. Her hands were shaking. She bribed me. "Sadie." She handed me the phone. It was a text thread with Marlene from 2 weeks ago. Marlene. "I know things are tight with Michael's hours being cut. I would hate for you to worry about that visa bill. If you can make sure everyone is at the dinner on Saturday and on their best behavior, I can take care of that balance for you. We need a united front." Jenna. "Thank you." Marlene. "That would be a huge help. We will be there." Marlene. "Good. And just go with the flow regarding the gifts. I have a plan for Sadie. Just support me." I stared at the screen. "She paid off your credit card?" I asked. $3,000. Jenna whispered. "We were drowning. Sadie, Michael's hours got cut at the plant. We didn't know how we were going to pay for groceries. She knew. She always knows. She sniffed out the weakness and she bought us. I didn't feel angry at Jenna. I felt sad. Marlene was a predator who fed on vulnerability. She kept her family financially unstable enough to need her, but comfortable enough to fear losing her. "It is okay." "Jenna," I said. "It is not okay," Jenna cried. "I sold out your daughter for $3,000, and now Ellie is suffering and I'm driving around with a paid-off visa feeling like garbage. You can fix it," I said. "How?" Jenna asked. "Send me the screenshots." I said, "All of them. And when the time comes, you have to tell the truth. Not to me, to the family. I will." Jenna said, "I promise." I went home. The house was quiet. Mark was working in the study. Ellie was in her room, probably staring at the wall. We needed a reset. I went into Ellie's room. She was lying on her bed, reading a book, but her eyes were red. "Hey," I said. "Hey," she mumbled. I sat on the edge of the bed. "I have been thinking." I said, "You know how everyone got those phones?" "I don't care about the phone," Ellie said quickly. I really don't. Mom, I know. I said, but I know it feels bad to be left out. And I know it feels unsafe when you can't reach us. I reached into my pocket. I hadn't bought an iPhone 17 Pro Max. I hadn't gone to Lakeview Wireless. I had gone to the local electronics store and bought a simple, high-quality tablet with a cellular plan and a smart watch with a GPS tracker and a call button. This is for us. I said, it is not a reward. It is not a gift for being good. It is a tool. This is so you can always call me or Dad or Aunt Talia. It is our family communication plan. Ellie looked at the watch. It was blue, her favorite color. Does Grandma know? She asked. No. I said, and she doesn't need to. This is between us. You don't have to earn this. Ellie, you have it because you are part of this team. Ellie put the watch on. She touched the screen. It lit up. Thank you, she whispered. And one more thing. I said, get your shoes on. We are having a party. A party? An unbirthday party. I said, just us. We ordered 3 large pizzas. We built a fort in the living room out of blankets and cushions. We watched old movies and ate until we felt sick. There were no photos posted to Facebook. There were no speeches about gratitude. It was messy and loud and real. At one point, Ellie looked at me, cheese stretching from her mouth. Mom? Yeah. Baby? I don't even want the phone anymore, she said. I just wanted to stop feeling different. You are different, I said. You are the only one who knows that love doesn't come in a shrink-wrapped box. The next day, the external pressure mounted. Evan Sutter called me. Sadie. He said. He sounded panicked. Marlene was here this morning. What did she do? I asked. She knows about the refund, he said, and she knows someone accessed the IP logs. She didn't accuse you directly, but she made a comment. She said, if this organization is going to side with people who are trying to destroy my family, I might need to rethink my endowment pledge. She is threatening to pull her funding, I asked. She is a patron circle donor. Sadie, she gives $20,000 a year. If she walks, we lose our summer reading program. The board is... They are nervous. They are asking me why I'm getting involved in a family dispute. She is using you. Evan, I said, she is using the library kids as human shields. I know, he said. But Sadie? I have a job to keep. Please, can you just resolve this? I hung up. She was scorching the earth. She was willing to defund a literacy program just to keep me from asking questions about an $11,000 charge. I called Priya. It is time, I said. We spent the afternoon assembling the packet. It was a dossier of dysfunction. Exhibit A, the Lakeview Wireless receipt with the fake email. Exhibit B, the Briar Glen Civic Partners refund notification. Exhibit C, the credit union ledger showing the unequal distribution. Exhibit D, the screenshots from Jenna. Exhibit E, the recording from the gratitude night. Exhibit F, the screenshot of her patron circle message about showing up like family. It was irrefutable. It showed a pattern of financial coercion, identity misuse, and emotional abuse. We need a meeting, Priya said. A final one. I sent the request. Marlene, we are willing to meet to discuss a path forward. We will meet at your house on Saturday at 10 a.m. Mark and I will attend. Ellie will not be present. We will bring a third-party observer. Marlene replied within the hour. I am glad you are finally seeing reason. Saturday works, but no strangers. Family only. And bring Ellie. I have a gift for her. I typed back immediately. No Ellie, no gifts. If you insist on Ellie being there, we do not come. If you refuse the observer, we do not come. This is non-negotiable. She waited 4 hours to reply. Fine. Come alone, but don't expect a warm welcome. I knew she was planning something. She agreed too easily to the no Ellie rule. She probably had a surprise witness of her own. On Friday, the day before the meeting, the mail arrived. It was a thick envelope from a law firm I didn't recognize. Haverford Associates. I opened it at the kitchen island. Mark stood next to me. It was a draft. a proposed addendum to the Henderson Family Trust and Estate Plan. It wasn't signed yet. It was a threat sent on bond paper. I flipped to the flagged page. Section 4.2. Eligibility for beneficiaries. Beneficiary eligibility is contingent upon active and positive participation in family unity as determined by the grantor, Marlene Henderson. Actions constituting alienation, defined as withholding grandchildren from visitation, disparaging the grantor to third parties, or refusing reasonable family requests, shall be grounds for removal from the trust. Note: in the event of Sadie Henderson's removal, any portion allocated to her issue, Ellie Henderson, shall be placed in a restricted trust to be managed solely by the grantor until the issue reaches the age of 25. I read it twice. She wasn't just threatening to cut me out. She was threatening to bypass me and take financial control of Ellie if I didn't fall in line. She would disinherit me, and if she died, any money for Ellie would be locked up in a box that only Marlene's ghost could open. She wants to own us, I whispered. Mark took the paper from my hand. She thinks this is a power move, he said. It is. I said, it is the ultimate power move. She is saying, dance for me, or your daughter gets nothing. And even if she gets something, I control it. I looked at the date on the draft. It was dated yesterday. She had drawn this up after the gratitude night. This was her response to my boundaries. I felt a strange calm settle over me. The fear was gone. The anxiety about what the neighbors would think was gone. Because you can't negotiate with a terrorist, and you can't reason with a tyrant. She had put it in writing. She had defined family unity as submission. I picked up the phone and called Priya. Add this to the packet. I said, we are going to the meeting tomorrow. I told Mark, are we going to fight? He asked. No. I said, we are going to finish it. I looked at the communication plan watch on the counter. Ellie was upstairs, safe, unconnected to the toxic web my mother had spun. Marlene had one last lever to pull. She thought the money was the ultimate trump card. She thought that if she threatened to burn the inheritance, I would jump into the fire to save it. She had forgotten that I was already building a life outside the fire. I took a Sharpie and wrote Exhibit G at the top of the estate draft. I put it in the binder. Tomorrow, we go to war. I said, but we do it quietly. The Saturday morning sun was hitting the windows of my mother's townhouse with a brilliance that felt almost mocking. It was a perfect day for a soccer game, or a hike, or a lazy breakfast. Instead, I was walking up the slate path to the front door, carrying a 3-inch binder that contained the autopsy of my family. Mark was on my right, his jaw set so tight I could see the muscle jumping. On my left was Priya Nandal, my attorney. She wasn't here to litigate. She was here to witness. Her presence changed the atmospheric pressure of the driveway. Usually, entering Marlene's house felt like stepping into a court where the laws of physics were suspended and only her feelings mattered. Today, we brought our own gravity. I rang the doorbell. Marlene answered. She was wearing a soft blue cardigan and tailored slacks. She looked impeccable. The picture of the grieving, misunderstood matriarch. Come in, she said. She looked at Priya. I see you brought a guest, she said, her voice cool. I thought I said family only. Priya is not a guest, I said, stepping past her into the foyer. She is an observer. She is here to take notes so that there is no confusion later about what was said. Marlene gave a tight, dismissive laugh, always so dramatic. Sadie, well, come into the living room. Raymond is making coffee. We walked into the white-carpeted living room. My father was sitting in his usual armchair, staring at his knees. He looked smaller than he had at the diner. He didn't look up when we entered. Sit, Marlene commanded, gesturing to the floral sofa. We sat. I placed the binder on the coffee table. The thud it made against the glass surface was the only sound in the room. Marlene sat in the wingback chair opposite us. She crossed her legs and folded her hands. I am glad you came, she began. Her tone measured. Reasonable. I know emotions have been high. I know things have been said on social media. But I want to move past that. I want to talk about the future. So do I. I said, good, Marlene said. She leaned forward slightly. Sadie, I am willing to put this whole iPhone incident behind us. I have the phone for Ellie right here in the sideboard. It is wrapped and ready. I didn't look at the sideboard. But, Marlene continued, raising a finger, we need to address the root cause. I cannot reward bad behavior. I cannot give a gift of that magnitude to a child who is being raised to disrespect her family. Disrespect? Mark asked, his voice low. Yes, Marlene said, turning her gaze to him. Exclusion. Alienation. You two have pulled Ellie away from us. You refuse Sunday dinners. You monitor her calls. You treat me like a stranger. The phone incident on Saturday. That was a parenting concern. I needed to see if Ellie could handle disappointment with grace, and instead of helping her, you stormed out. She sat back. So here is my offer, she said. You, Sadie, will apologize to the family for the scene you caused. You will agree to resume weekly dinners, and you will stop this nonsense about boundaries, which is just a code word for withholding my grandchild. If you do that, Ellie gets the phone, and I will reinstate the monthly transfer to your savings account. She smiled. It was the smile of a woman who thought she held all the cards. Are you finished? I asked. I am, she said. I opened the binder. I am not going to apologize. Mom, I said, and we are not going to resume dinners. We are here to talk about the facts. I turned to the first tab. Exhibit A, I said, the Lakeview wireless receipt. I spun the binder around so she could see it. You claimed you bought the phones as a personal gift. I said, but you used the Briar Glen Civic Partners account to pay for them, and you used my name, my address, and a fake email address created by you to secure the warranty. Marlene didn't blink. I told you, she said, that was administrative. I was protecting your liability. I turned the page. Exhibit B. I said, the credit union ledger. You claimed the Grandkids Fund was a savings vehicle for their future, but you have been using it to funnel money to the nonprofit to pay for these gifts, effectively getting a tax deduction for your own generosity. And you have assigned $0 to Ellie based on a pending review status that correlates directly to my compliance with your demands. Marlene's eyes narrowed. That is my money. Sadie, I can allocate it how I see fit. I turned the page again. Exhibit C, I said, the email from Evan Sutter confirming the refund of the unauthorized donation you set up in my name. Marlene waved her hand. A mistake, she said. A clerical error, was it? I asked. I looked at Priya. Priya stood up and walked to the front door. She opened it. Evan Sutter walked in. The director of the nonprofit looked pale. He was holding a file folder. He looked at Marlene, then at me, then at the floor. Evan? Marlene said. Her voice cracked. It was the first time she sounded unsure. What are you doing here? I asked him to come, I said, because I wanted to clear up the clerical error. Evan stood by the fireplace. He didn't sit. Marlene. Evan said softly. We had an emergency board meeting last night. Marlene stiffened. You did? Yes, Evan said. We reviewed the transaction logs for the Digital Forward grant. He opened his folder. The 7 iPhones were purchased using the nonprofit's tax-exempt status. Evan said. They were categorized as event technology for the upcoming gala. They were not authorized for personal distribution. Marlene's face went white. I was going to use them at the gala, she argued, for the silent auction check-in. And then I was going to let the kids keep them. It is perfectly standard. It is not standard, Evan said. It is conversion of assets. And because you utilize the event sponsorship discount from Lakeview Wireless, you paid 20% below retail, a discount reserved for charitable operations. Evan looked at me. Sadie, he said, the account created in your name. The IP logs confirm it was done from this house, not the bank. I looked at my father. Dad? I asked. Raymond looked up. He looked like a ghost. I looked at the log. Evan said, the MAC address matches the iPad currently sitting on that side table. Marlene stood up. Get out, she said to Evan. You ungrateful little. I funded your salary. Evan, I am the reason that library has a roof. We are returning your donation. Marlene, Evan said. The board voted. We are severing ties. We cannot be associated with this. He placed a letter on the mantelpiece. I am sorry. He said to me. He walked out. The room was silent. The air conditioner hummed. Marlene stood there, her chest heaving, her public shield, the benevolent donor, the pillar of the community, had just crumbled in her own living room. She turned to me. Her eyes were venomous. You did this, she hissed. You destroyed my reputation over a phone. I didn't do this. Mom, I said calmly. You did. You used a charity to subsidize your control issues. You used my name to cover your tracks. I looked at Raymond. Dad, I said, tell her? Tell her what? Marlene snapped. Raymond doesn't have anything to say to you. Raymond? I said. My father took a deep breath. It sounded like a rattle in his chest. I signed the papers, he whispered. Marlene froze. Shut up. Raymond. I signed them, he said, louder this time. He looked at Marlene. I signed the warranty. I signed the bank transfer. I signed the estate addendum. Why did you sign them, Dad? I asked gently. Because she told me to, he said. He looked at me, and his eyes were wet. Because if I don't, she says she will sell the house. She says she will move us into a condo in Florida, and I will lose my workshop. She says I will have nothing. He put his face in his hands. I am just so tired. Sadie, I just want to sleep. I looked at Marlene. You are holding him hostage. I said, you are holding your husband hostage with threats of homelessness, and you are holding your daughter hostage with threats of disinheritance. Marlene sat back down. She smoothed her skirt. She took a breath, and terrifyingly, she composed herself. The panic was gone. The rage was gone. In its place was a cold, hard pragmatism. Fine, she said. She looked at me. You win. Sadie, you proved your point. You are very smart. You have your little binder and your lawyer and your whistleblower. You embarrassed me. Congratulations. She leaned forward. But you are forgetting one thing. What is that? I asked. I still have the money, she said. She pointed to the binder. You can prove I moved it. You can prove I bought the phones through the nonprofit. You can maybe even get the IRS to find me. But you cannot make me give it to you. She stood up and walked to the sideboard. She picked up a document. It was the signed version of the estate addendum. This is the new will, she said. It cuts you out. Sadie. Completely. And it puts Ellie's share into a trust that I control until she is 30. If I die, it goes to a board of trustees that I appointed. You will never see a dime. She held the paper up. So here's the choice. You can walk out of here with your moral victory and your binder. But you walk out poor. You walk out knowing that Theo and Lila and the twins will go to college debt-free. They will have down payments for their houses. They will have safety. And Ellie? Ellie will have student loans. She will have struggle. And she will know it is because her mother was too proud to apologize. She dropped the paper on the table, or she said, You burn that binder. You tell Evan it was a misunderstanding. You apologize to me right now, and I tear this up. The room held its breath. Mark looked at me. Priya looked at me. Raymond looked at his shoes. It was the final lever, the one she had been saving. She was offering me a price for my dignity. She was offering to buy my daughter's future in exchange for my submission. I looked at the paper. I looked at the zeros. Millions of dollars. Likely. Security. Ease. I thought about Ellie. I thought about the watch on her wrist. I thought about the pizza party. I thought about her saying, I don't even want the phone anymore. I stood up. I picked up the binder. Keep it, I said. Marlene blinked. What? Keep the money. I said, keep the house. Keep the trust fund. Keep the iPhones. I looked her in the eye. You think money is safety, Mom, but it isn't. Not the way you use it. The way you use it. Money is a leash, and I am not going to let you put a leash on my daughter. Sadie, do not be an idiot, Marlene said, her voice rising. We are talking about her future. No, I said, we are talking about her soul. I stepped closer to her. If Ellie grows up with student loans, she will pay them off. If she struggles, she will learn resilience. But she will know, every single day, that she is loved for who she is, not for how well she obeys. She will know that her mother didn't sell her out for a down payment. I turned to Mark. We are done here. I looked at Raymond. Dad, I said, if you ever want to leave, you have a place with us. The couch is lumpy, but it is free, and nobody will make you sign anything. He looked up at me. He didn't speak, but he nodded, just once, a tiny, imperceptible movement. I turned back to Marlene. Here's the boundary, Mom, and this one is final. I pointed to the binder in my hand. I am not releasing this to the IRS today. I am not sending it to the rest of the family. Yet, I am keeping it. I said, it is my insurance policy. If you contact Ellie, I release it. If you mention me on Facebook, I release it. If you send a flying monkey to guilt trip me at the grocery store, I release it. You keep your money. I keep my daughter. And we never, ever speak again unless you are ready to sign a document that Priya writes, transferring full legal independence of any gifts to us. Marlene stared at me. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. She looked at the binder, then at me. She realized that I held the nuclear launch codes to her social standing. Is that clear? I asked. Get out, she whispered. I turned and walked to the door. Priya opened it for us. As we stepped onto the porch, I heard a sound from the living room. It was the sound of a vase shattering against a wall. I didn't flinch. We walked down the slate path. The sun was still shining. The air smelled of freshly cut grass and freedom. Mark took my hand. You just walked away from $3 million, he said. I looked at him. I felt lighter than I had in 10 years. I didn't walk away from it. Mark, I said, I paid it. You paid it? He asked. It was the ransom. I said, I looked at the empty back seat of the car where Ellie would be sitting later, and I got her back. We got in the car. I put the binder in the back. I pulled out my phone. There was a text from Ellie. Mom, can we go to the park when you get home? I typed back. Yes, we can go anywhere you want. I started the engine. I didn't look back at the townhouse. I drove out of the pristine development, past the manicured lawns and the silent, expensive houses, and turned onto the main road. The road back to Briar Glen was bumpy, and the car needed an oil change, and we still had a mortgage to pay. But as I accelerated onto the highway, I realized something. I was broke, but I was free, and for the first time in my life, the silence on my phone didn't feel like a punishment. It felt like peace. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I hope you enjoyed the journey of Sadie and her battle for her family's integrity. I would love to know, where are you listening from today? Please drop a comment below with your city or country. It is always amazing to see how far these stories travel. If you enjoyed this, please make sure to subscribe to Revenge Stories. We have many more tales of justice, drama, and standing up for what is right coming your way. And please, share your thoughts on Sadie's decision in the comments. Would you have walked away from the money, or would you have played the game? See you in the next story.